guys? Welcome to the Knowledge Gap Show. Today we're tackling the knowledge gap surrounding purpose. Most people don't know their purpose or why they do what they do. We're going to talk about why you need to start with why. You're going to want to stick around the entire episode. We're giving you the template to figure out your why and your purpose that has worked for us, and it'll work for you, and it's worked for tons of people, and I'm excited to share that with you guys. And in the episode, we're also watching some Simon Sinek and reacting to that and talking about why you need to start with why. Thank you for returning to the show. If you're new, we talk about the knowledge gap on here. We believe that the difference between you living your dreams and doing whatever it is that 88% of people do that hate their jobs is literally just knowing how to do your dreams, is how to make it happen. So we're going over purpose. Nick, purpose.
Purpose. Everybody's got one. It's just finding out what works best for you.
People really seem to struggle with engaging the logical side with the emotional side of their brain.
Yeah.
It's like there's these things that we want that we can't really articulate, right? Yeah. And it's a struggle for us to really say what we mean, how we feel. And so when we're trying to put this into the logical realm of what is our job or career or major that we want to do, and how do we even know why we're doing it, and how do we know what we really want, there's all these things that we like. How do we narrow it down, to that like one thing that actually matters the most? And this is so important because everybody does it backwards. We're about to see this video of Simon Sinek, who has got a lot of really good books. This is from his book, Start With Why, which I really encourage you to read if you want to figure out your why. And this is from a speech 6 or 7 years ago. I've seen this video a multitude of times, but he's just going to kind of go over this idea of why you need to start with why and how everybody starts with what and how first, and then we'll kind of break that down.
Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this: we make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo, in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one?
Yeah, I love that video. Man, it's what we do with our major. Like, think about going to college. Did you pick film as your first major?
No.
What'd you pick your first major?
I picked physical therapy.
Why'd you pick it?
I wanted to help people, but also money was a pretty big factor.
Absolutely right. If we look at that too, for me, mine was accounting. Accounting is totally valuable. Very good major that I thought everyone should learn something to do with it, to understand how your taxes and things like that. But the way I picked it is someone told me that you make good money from it. Well, that's what I would do is accounting. I would get money from it. How would I do it? I go to college and take these classes. Why do I do it?
Yeah.
Money. And money's not a great motivator.
No.
The more wealthy you become, the higher rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness are. So it's like not the key to joy or happiness, which is the whole point of this channel, is helping people overcome their knowledge gap and to help other people and to, be leaders who care about others. So, when you're thinking about it the opposite direction, you're like, what's kind of the end result of what I want to do? Well, you said it kind of like, I want to help people. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's, maybe a little vague in our sense. We'll kind of break that down at the end of the episode today. But starting with that why, if I want to help people, and then working out where, just like he was talking about in the video, is exactly what you want to do with your purpose. But people struggle with this for a couple reasons. One, they don't sit down off their phone long enough to sit there and think about it. They don't write it down, they just think it. And so you've got to get to a distracted less area where you can sit here and actually think. There's not a lot of creative thought going on if you're like watching a screen.
Yeah. Because
the average person spends 4 hours on social media. You don't want to do that anymore. Stop doing that. It's an addiction. Everyone kind of gets addicted to it, right?
Comment your screen time on social media below.
So what are the barriers to figuring out your purpose? You need a purpose for a lot of reasons, because your emotional brain and your logical brain, they don't communicate very well, right? We kind of already mentioned this. The reason you need the emotional side to come forward in figuring out why is because there's a barrier to entry to what you want to do. Whatever it is you want to do in life, there is a barrier to entry called the dip. Okay, there's a good book called The Dip by Seth Godin that'll help illustrate this really well. But the idea is whenever you're learning something new, this is really where the knowledge gap comes from in a lot of ways too. There's a big learning curve. And in that learning curve, there's a huge dip in that curve where it gets really, really hard.
Rock bottom.
Right. And this is where most people quit. So for example, we talk about podcasting a lot. 97% of people quit at episode 7. Why do they quit? Because they get overwhelmed with everything that you have to do to make it good enough to make sense to do or to monetize it. And they have all these little knowledge gaps that overwhelm them, and their logical brain cannot handle it because logically you don't put yourself in pain, right?
Yeah.
Your brain wants you to avoid as much pain as possible. It used to be one of the top fears in America above death was public speaking. And do you want to know why that is so frightening to most people? Do you know why? It's that painful for people to do public speaking, why it's makes you so afraid?
Seems like it's something that's not actually there. Kind of a placebo fear.
Placebo fear, well, all fear you could probably say, especially social fear, is kind of a weird placebo thing, right? Yeah. The only two fears that you're born with is the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises.
Loud noises, yeah.
Right? Because everything we do when you're an adult is to exhilarate you with those two things. Roller coasters, the fear of falling. Extremely loud concerts, the fear of loud noises. You do the opposite. The reason public speaking is so hard for people is because your brain wants to fit into the herd. This is herd mentality of where you feel safe with other people. And when you go up in front of everybody, you are uniquely not with everybody else on the same level. You are completely different, and you are like a sore thumb, sticking out to everybody.
Facing the other direction.
Absolutely.
Facing against the people.
Exactly. And so when you do that, it's really difficult for your brain to be excited about it. So it's fight or flight. And so it wants you to run away really badly because it's not where you should be to basically survive. If you're in the pack, you live, from when we were hunter-gatherer societies, right? That's why that's so hard to do.
Ridicule.
Exactly. It's just fear of not fitting in. And that's a huge thing. FOMO comes for that, all that kind of stuff. And so you need your purpose in order to get through that kind of stuff, because if you want to go impact and help people, public speaking is a necessary evil that you're going to have to figure out how to do. And when you do it effectively, you do change people's lives and you inspire them to start stuff. So if you're trying to impact, you've got to go through the pain. You've got to go through these, and your purpose has to be so big that you don't care. You can't care about the naysayers. You can't care about the ridicule. You can't care about the insults. You can't care when you feel like a failure and you don't know what you're doing. You just have to keep pushing forward. And if your why isn't big enough, you're going to stop and you're going to give up, just like our previous episode on talent was. You're going to stop at the edge of your talent instead of developing your mindset to push past that. So for podcasting, the reason, and I'm going to make a series about this, I'm really excited about it actually, of all the things I've learned and all of the failures I hit in order to get the podcast to this point with Nick here. Be looking out for that. But the reason I keep doing it is because if one person listens to an episode and they're motivated and inspired by it, it's worth all of the effort that goes into behind the scenes making this happen. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that can be frustrating, but it's worth it because if it helps you, I'm willing to do it, right? So, okay, here's the huge takeaway that I want you guys to try. It's essentially this be, do, have. So we have these barriers to entry. We need our purpose in order to do what we want to do. And the reason most people don't do what they want to do and follow their dreams is they don't know how to develop the purpose big enough to go through all of this pain. So that's what we're understanding.
Finding the why that makes it worth it.
Exactly. So that's what you've got to find. Everybody has one. Everybody's got a dream. Most people give up on their dreams. That doesn't mean you didn't have one. And if you think and dig deep enough, you can find that and you can start figuring out how to live that way. So I'm going to teach you this thing called a be, do, have list that we learned from this wonderful place called Southwestern. This is a pretty cool list. And so if you do this, it does work. And we want you to comment below with how it helped you. And if you ever want to chat about it, we want to talk to you guys. So let us know. So be, do, have. Okay, there's 3 lists you're going to make. Number 1, you're going to make a be list. Number 2 is a do list. Number 3 is a have list. You're going to have 3 lists. Again, most people do this backwards. They're like, how much money do I want to make? That's a have. What kind of job do I want to do? That's a do. And they're like, why am I doing it? I don't know, right? They usually go that direction. We're going to go the direction of who am I? Who do I want to become? What do I want to do that will make me become a better person? And what is the lifestyle I want to have that will allow me to do the things I want to do and be the person I want to be? That's the most important direction. That's why we're going from why to basically how and to the what. You got to get your emotional brain locked in on this. So the way to do that is you think about, if I were hovering over my funeral spiritually, and that's like a morbid thought. You're like, you're literally, imagine you're floating in the air and you see your casket and it's about to get put into the ground. Before it does, your son's about to give your speech, a eulogy of your life, right? He's about to tell everybody about what he thought about you. And I want you to write down 10 things you want your son or your daughter to say about you at your funeral.
About your character.
Yes, character, like honest,
bold,
hardworking, whatever it is. So write down 10 things. And now, right next to that list on this B, right, this is supposed to be emotional. Write down what they would say about you right now. And then I want you to think about, what are the differences between the two? And why have you settled for those differences to exist? because you're likely, when I first did this, I was not who I wanted to be yet. But that yet's really important, and this is going to help you realize this. You don't feel like a failure, because most people don't do this. That's why they hate their jobs, because they don't know why they're doing them. They just picked them for the money. They picked them because it's something to do, and then they become so reliant. They fall into fear that they can never leave them either. That's huge. So you've got these lists. You've got who you are kind of right now, what they would say, which that might shock you a little bit, who you really want to be. Okay, so this is who you really want to be. Well, what are things that you want to do that would essentially make you into who you want to be? This helped you with your career choice. If you want to be somebody who's honest or somebody who's caring, there's certain jobs that you're not going to be able to do, because some jobs you kind of have to be brutal, like the military. You got to kill people in the military. If your like main value is kindness, it may not be the place for you. You got to shoot things, particularly people, right?
Yeah.
So that's not really
a lot of them. Yeah.
Maybe a medic, right? There's some movies about stuff like that. But the point is that it's going to start narrowing down the jobs and the things that you want to do. And this is going to tell you what career, what major. It's going to start pointing in the right direction on if you should start your own business, if you should create content, if you should be a doctor, all of those kinds of things. And that's what you're putting in your do list. What are things that basically build up this B? Last but not least, your haves, right? What do you want to have in your lifestyle? What kind of family, friends, what kind of things, what kind of house? How can I make that possible through these things? And how can they all essentially coexist and agree with each other? Because usually when people find themselves unhappy with, their job, because I felt this before, is there's something in there that they have to settle on. For example, for me, I was traveling a lot. And one of the things I wrote down on my do's, I worked at a job where I could do all of my B's and do 9 out of 10 do's. It was travel, being able to speak, all these motivational type things. But number 10 was I want to be a coach for my kids. So I want to do coaching for my kids whenever I have kids. Yeah. And with that much travel, that's not possible. What I encouraged you to do is not settle. If you can't do 10 out of 10, you need to find something different. And that right there, ever since I've done that, it has made me just so much more joyful, to be honest with you, not settling.
How often do you think this is something you should revisit? You do have?
Well, I think most people visit it once a year, if they even ever made it. I think most people probably never make this list. But if you can revisit once a week, there are times when I'd be going hard in the summer running a business where I would look at it every single Sunday and review it. Again, it's so easy to fall out of good habits, but I looked at it today. Yeah. I've looked at it twice in the past couple of weeks, which is good. And I want to have that go into my schedule every single week going forward when I'm planning my weeks. That's something I do. So hopefully this is helpful. You guys should do that. Make a be, do, have list. Let us know what you think. And we appreciate you guys. And if you would love to bridge the knowledge gap, there's so many knowledge gaps to bridge and a lot to cover. But if you want to essentially bridge your knowledge gap, we invite you guys to subscribe to our channel. We're going to keep making new episodes every single week. On Thursdays, they're released at 12 o'clock because that's when most of you guys are online. So that's what we're switching to. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, hope this helps.
Human torch.
Human torch.